That panel discussion now, it's interesting to see how experiential technology has found its way into different industries. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the game Fortnite recently held a concert in-game. So again, we're seeing the shift of different platforms to incorporate ideas of experiential technology. And you know what, I'll let our experts elaborate on that. So for our panel discussion on this topic, we have Lionel Chok, Chief Metaverse Officer at World X. We have Karina Wijaya, co-founder of NXT Interactive. And we have Thaddeus Ko, co-founder and head of program at E27. Now, this discussion will be moderated by Mark Ng, SEO and social content marketing lead, Job Street Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give our guests a very warm welcome.
Test. Okay, a very good afternoon to everybody here. Let me just welcome our guests back up on stage. So we have Thaddeus Ko, co-founder and head of program E27. We have Lionel Chok, Chief Metaverse Officer for World X, as well as Karina Wijaya, co-founder of NXT Interactive. Thank you so much for joining us. So my name again is Mark Ng. I am the SEO and social content marketing lead for Job Street Singapore. Now, over the years, a lot of us have been hearing about this. What is experiential technology? What is an NFT? What is metaverses, right? So today we're going to deep dive into that and find out a little bit more of where does this play, right, in this entire job market? What is it in it for me? And what can I learn from this and bring this into my daily lives and corporate lives, right? But before that, let's just dive into our speakers for a little bit so they can share a little bit about themselves, right? So let's start with Thaddeus. Could you just tell us and introduce yourselves to the audience first?
Hi everyone, my name is Thaddeus. I'm a co-founder at E27. We are a tech media and tech events platform. How this is relevant is because we see a lot of technology companies here in Singapore and Southeast Asia. So this is something that is really exciting and we think it's very relevant to discuss with the audience here today. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Next, could you just move over to Lionel Chok? Just introduce yourself to the audience so they can know a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Hello, my name is Lionel. I do a few things. I guess you can look for me online, but WorldX is sort of a startup within some of the other positions that I hold. We believe that this is something to look forward to, which is the metaverse and virtual economy. So we want to be pioneering this effort now, even though it's not very widespread, and it's kind of looking ahead of what's to come.
All right, thank you so much. And now, last but not least, let's move over to Karina Wijaya, co-founder of NXT Interactive.
Thank you so much, Mark. Hi, everybody. My name is Karina. Similarly with Lionel, so I've been in several businesses, and one of which that I'm super excited since last year is a new entity that we've started called Next Interactive that's focusing on experiential experiences during the events and even for different businesses as well.
Thank you so much. So we've brought our panel of expertise here today, but let's first scrape the surface and understand what exactly is experiential technology. We've been hearing XR, AR, VR. Could we just deep dive and understand what is it really? Maybe we can start with Lionel. How about you?
Sure, thanks, Mark. I think by now everybody would have heard of it and might have experienced it. So I myself was very compelled by it. I switched careers from 20 years of media to do a postgrad in XR, or at the time we call it emerging technologies. I came back and started a startup back in 2015, specifically specializing in XR. It was acquired during COVID. The idea was really that people wanted to understand and see what is the use case beyond just a flat screen. Because we interact spatially, as you can tell. But now when we go online, we have to face a flat screen. It's just not very natural. So when technologies improve and some of these things, pick up, naturally we start to see some of these things become more and more understandable and probably easier to use, and more importantly, more cost effective. So with experiential technologies or immersive technologies, we try to bring some of these things closer to more of the natural consumption of how we experience several industries. So I think that has become something for many businesses to be very excited about. And now you see a lot of these being picked up, AR in furniture, for example, and so on and so forth.
That's really interesting to see that we have, experiential technologies being weaved into different areas of the businesses and not just in tech. Everybody thinks tech alone is just the industry that let's use the most up and coming technologies out there, but no, we can actually put it in every other place, right? How about you, Karina? What is your take on what is XR? What is experiential technologies?
So when you say experiential technology and XR, X is stand for anything like XX dollars, right? So there is no determination of what is X. So in layman terms, because I don't come from a tech background like Lionel the genius, I'm more into like marketers, right? So that's how I started. So I always put myself in the shoes of the public. So what does XR stands for is anything from augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. AR, VR, MR, it's called XR. So this is actually simplified my understanding. And so to me, experiential technology, simply put, how do you utilize technology and make things interesting for people and to connect better or to understand better in much less seconds, like in much less time that compared you reading a book, you can actually do that in split seconds, right? So it simplifies the whole understanding of what you want to share as a business or as an individual.
That sounds really interesting. Thaddeus, how about you? Has there been a way that maybe E27 has thought of using XR in your work or in any of your programs or products?
Sure. So from our perspective, what we've seen in the industry, especially after COVID, thanks Karina for explaining that, is that they applied this in many different new sectors, like what Lionel mentioned. Some very interesting ones are like property. Like if you imagine if you need to buy anything that requires a physical aspect to it, a lot of them are adopting a lot of this technology to let people experience it in mixed reality of different forms. So you get a better representation of what you are looking at. And as what Lionel said, 2D related visuals no longer work today. And since COVID, many people and companies are exploring deeper way of representing their products and services and trying to use that to do a launch pad so that they are no longer limited by boundaries. And with digital world today, you can reach out to any global citizen, global customers, users to actually look at your products and services. So the ones we've seen in property, we think healthcare, how you deliver that diagnostic experience between a patient and a doctor. Actually, right now is a lot of video conferencing, but we've seen some technology that is super interesting on AI mixed with mixed reality with deep fake and things like that. Super interesting. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. I think something that we all have touched is it's the pervasiveness of social media, right? All of us have used social media. We've seen how it's been used in advertising, and it's really something that has penetrated all of our users and how we see the world around us. But maybe we could go into Karina. What kind of technologies or how do you use that in your business in Next Interactive?
So Next Interactive is actually one of the subsidiary that we have under a marketing group. So in our marketing agencies, we do a lot of events. We started back in 2012, and we have always leveraged on technology and make the event interesting, memorable, yada, yada, yada. So the same thing, when we started Next Interactive, we apply first thing. Obviously, everybody starts to become super creative during COVID, so it's the same thing for us. During COVID, we started to feel that we need to bring something new to the market. So that's where we were actually taking over projects from L'Oreal Group and many others that we did. We created a 360 environment event space for them because we cannot be there physically. But what it is today is that we need to have that mix of virtual and in-person activities. So experiential technology came in place where people who cannot be in the place, you can still go to the virtual space. People in the place, you must experience something interesting with technology. So they're applicable to my event clients. And what's interesting is actually many of the ministries, like educating, they utilize this experiential technology and the virtual spaces to educate whatever that they want to share with their target audience. This applies to banking, to really it's educating industry. This is basically what they utilize these spaces for.
I think what we saw over the last few years is that we saw so many brands creating metaverses, right? There was the Heineken metaverse, and then we had recently Fortnite had an actual concert for Lil Nas X in metaverse, right? In a game itself. Everything started to be a little bit more interactive. But is this a trend that we are starting to see between consumer brands, finance brands, even property, that this means that technologies that we are using that is every day accessible to every other person out here, is it going to be used even more so in the coming years? Lionel, what's your take?
I think this reply would warrant a very longer conversation. But my take is, because if you remember, we came off COVID having to face a flat Zoom screen for the longest time. And so when the metaverse arrived right after COVID or there and about, there was a huge embrace about, we now can express ourselves online via a proxy like an avatar that can emote, jump and walk around and all that. And suddenly our digital interaction is a lot more than just 2D face call. And that's why people are like, let's get into this. But of course, after some time you realize that interaction is a little bit superficial. You are still behind a screen, which is 2D and flat, but through the proxy, attempting to interact spatially or 3D. And for some reason, in the whole scheme of things, it died off because of also like the wave of AI, and things didn't really pan out because people were not understanding how is this going to be more than just a marketing effort and so on and so forth. But like with all technologies, there has been milestones. VR, for example, didn't just explode in 2015. The first wave was where you put a head into the booth during 70s, and that was like VR. So technologies, as technologies goes, takes a few cycles to happen. But as far as we come to know of it, if you have been immersed literally and figuratively in this space and understand how it works, then of course you gain the upper hand because you'll be able to know and know how to exploit it, know how to position yourself. Right now a lot of people are just jumping onto AI because it's a hype and they're catching up. But it takes 2 seconds for you to see that, you only know this much because you are literally just starting out. So with most technologies, I think it's a far more better position to invest yourself into something early on, even though the market might not say that it's very hot right now. But you take the effort to understand that, this is what I think is going to be long-term, and I want to position myself to be a specialist or an expert in it. And then when the technology matures, I know I have a better position to be among the, to rise up above the rest.
Right, so it really is trying to understand what are the ways, what are the trends, do you want to be part of that change, and how I wouldn't want to say future-proof because we don't have a crystal ball, right? We don't know what's going to be the future. It's very hard to kind of prevent that, but really what is the best way to prepare ourselves for those waves? So I think, Thaddeus, what are some of the trends in the last few years, especially in tech or X-tech, that you've seen really grow in traction and now even like slightly fizzle out? But what is the thing that is going up? We've had metaverses, we have NFTs. Now a lot of people are talking about Gen AI, right? But we all know AI has been around for many, many years, right? It's just that now it's in the palms of every other consumer. So what are the trends that you have seen, and maybe what is your personal favorite trend?
Yeah. So we as a media company, we look at many companies. Also, as an events company, we do our own events, right? And I was just at Bangkok last week to attend a tech event. And many of you all will know during COVID, you were, Lionel mentioned many times, right? Attending Zoom calls, this part of your work, or joining webinars on Zoom. And there are also events that went on to create metaverses in terms of interacting with your keyboard without the goggles yet. That really gave a lot of attention to this entire realm of experiential technologies. But after COVID, you will see that a lot of these platforms actually are starting to calm down. Many people actually do not want to attend those events anymore. And I think the reason is quite clear, and why you guys are here today instead of a virtual platform. Certain things has to be explained face to face. So in some of the events, we have seen people do that, but nowadays there are more companies doing a mix where they bring the experience actually within the event. So they have a box where when you go inside, they replicate the entire environment for you to experience, right? To give you an understanding of what they're trying to deliver as a product or a service, instead of purely giving you that experience online or at your home. So different sectors apply these technologies in different ways. And some of the most interesting ones that I've seen is using a mix of AI and a mix of deepfake and AR and VR. I don't even know how many technologies they use to train nurses, like in emergency rooms. Because as a medical profession in an emergency room, you've got to make very fast decisions. And what the current training processes are is a lot of paper, a lot of laptop stuff and all that. But this company uses a mix. They use a lot of data from the medical centers, the hospitals, and then they created a situation where they ask the medical staff that is assessing their skills, if this happens, what are you going to do, right? And that when this happens, they literally have a so-called patient where they will simulate you hearing their heartbeat using earphones on your laptop, and then from there you actually make a call, what is the issue, and then when you mention in your phone, hi, I think you have high heart rate, something is wrong, the avatar actually responds. But that response is actually taking into consideration what you are saying, inputting it into the system, running the AI engine under it, and delivering it through the person's deepfake face with a voice that is built from the scratch. It's not even a real person. So there are some technologies out there that are really, really very front edge and applying a lot of these things. So for the people in the audience, I think this is a space where if you're keen to look at something very cutting edge, I will encourage you guys to seek out learning opportunities, getting involved in some of these companies, because this will really give you an edge in the next 3 to 5 years. Personally, I don't think it's now. I think there's a lot of things that needs to be worked out. But you know, Apple, if they launch a product, it's always a category winner in a sense that will really bring that sector alive. So we'll say it's in the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah, that a lot of this will come up. Yeah.
Right, Karina, you were nodding your head quite a bit when he said like it's not now and maybe in the next 3 to 5 years. Is this something that you kind of see as a trend that might be up and coming, an emerging trend that's coming in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, in our industry, whatever that we know today, to the market, it will only relate to them 5 to even 7 years later. When we did the see now, buy now concept idea, it was back in 2013. We did the world first live streaming event 2012. And so it took really long for the end consumer, the public, to actually be massively involved, right? So I do super agree with Thaddeus and whatever that he said. You know, what is the upcoming, the X tech that's going to be, popular later on. But I do think that before that, what is already ongoing, which is actually our current projects, right? It is to reimagine shopping. reimagine purchasing. Every one of us using Shopee, Lazada, any other web. Every day you are literally fed with shopping, retail, e-commerce, like it or not. Yes, you will be physically shopping, but how much in your expenses in a month, how many percent you spend online and how many percent you spend offline? I do spend online more than offline, including my supermarket and so on, right? So what is going to change in the next coming years, which is pretty soon? A lot of big companies already starting to switch how you guys shop on a flat 2D website into a 3D virtual environment. So it makes you more immersed. They have added the sense of community. So it's no longer just like one-sided shopping, and then Red Mart comes and NTUC comes into place, and then they fight with each other. So the moment they own you as a community, you don't go that far. So this is what is next that's coming up, creating an experience that you will still be shopping as per usual, but you're no longer shopping in a 2D flat screen, but you will be going in to a 3D environment through website. So this is where it is next that we are currently working on.
That sounds really interesting. Lionel,
Yeah,
like,
maybe I wanted
yeah.
to jump in here because I don't want the audience to feel like, oh, you know, everything that we're talking about here is so forward that it doesn't apply to me right now. And that was the point of us talking about it today. I think the beauty of it is that the technology is seemingly here but not here, but at the same time, it does have application across many different industries, from security to healthcare to, and in our current positions, no matter what position you are, these industries will embrace and use them at their own juncture. But right now, in your current capacity in the industry, if you're going to wait for it to come and then decided to embrace it, the company might hire somebody else for it. But if you openly embrace it, post about it, let your peers know about your interest in it, and I've seen people in many companies like openly and overtly just telling their supervisors that I'm really interested in this, I'm going to start my journey. When that time comes in your relevant and respective companies, I think the first person they approach for you to fill that position is you. So I think these opportunities are quite valuable for you to look at what are the openings that you can crave for or craft for yourself, in such that when the time comes, your company is not hard-pressed to go and look for somebody else when you're already in that company, but you would have reached a point whereby they would say, hey, so-and-so, we noticed that you have already been on this journey and we want you to step up. So I think these are some of the relevant and interesting propositions you might consider for yourself today.
So maybe for yourself, given the market trends and whatnot, what is it that you are looking for in a candidate? What is that X factor that you want to see if these candidates want to break into this industry, into this trend? What is something you want to see from them?
This question is, I also adjunct at SMU, and this is one of the questions the students ask, like, what is it that you can tell me to get my job? And it's a crystal balling kind of a thing. I think more importantly is, what is it that you're doing that will help you to show more portfolios outside your paper qualifications? And you notice the recruiters will look at your application and see you have a whole line of paper qualifications and then nothing else. So I think it's important to be really out there and say, I attended this talk and I'm going to post about it and talk about what I learned. And these things build up. These things will actually build up your presence about what you have learned and are exposed to. And the recruiters and the people will see that you yourself has been really upskilling in all these different facets of learning. Never mind, it's not even a formal kind of a training, but you know more than maybe the average Joe that hasn't gone for any of these things, and you might actually be a better candidate to even consider for a first interview. So I think these things are quite important to be just out there and occupying almost every possible time to just be in all the things that's happening as much as possible. And I think being here is probably a good first step.
Maybe I just add on that. So we, as a hirer as well, the biggest struggle for us is really understanding the person. It's not even skills at this point in time. anybody can write a super awesome resume, right? You have ChatGPT right now. You can just feed it your experience, write the best resume, right? Everyone's resume is going to look the same in about 2 years' time. But the struggle is we would, as employers, right, as doing interviews on video conferencing calls, it's always that, who are you as a person, right? So employers always ask, okay, what do you as a hobby? Tell me more about yourself. But how much can you know a person in that 15 minutes, right? So I think if you guys are applying a job, how can you show your character, your attitude to the hirers, right? Because that's always that biggest question. The closest we can get to is calling your references. It's like calling your brother, calling your previous boss. Hey, how is this person like? But that's, I mean, how much can someone verbally describe you as a person? Not much, right? Right? We are so complex, right, in terms of what you have to offer, right? So, and sometimes it's not just skills, right? We are looking for character. And especially for junior position, character beats whatever skills you have. So using some of this technology, and sometimes it's not even, it doesn't have to be initiated by the employers, right? Like, hey, join this metaverse so that I know who you are as a person. But you can initiate using some of this technology to showcase who you are as a person, right? So I think this is where some of this technology could be interesting. If you take the initiative, employers will always take note of that, right? And if that's a very positive outcome in terms of showing you as a person, you want to know, okay, I'm extremely passionate about this. I might not have experience at all in this space, but I'm really, really passionate about this. If you hire me, you will not go wrong, right? How do you show that? So I think this is where a lot of this technology can be applied in this space to show intangible stuff. I think that's what is really lacking in some of these industries.
I think showing the intangible things especially when you meet hirers, managers, when you meet candidates as well, it's how do you convey that, right? So JobStreet did do a survey earlier this year called the Future Recruitment Report, and we found that a lot of our candidates want to make that connection with their hiring managers during the recruitment process. We want to be able to make that connection, and it also goes both ways, right? When the candidate makes a connection with their hiring managers, the hiring managers are better able to ascertain how good or what is the aptitude of this candidate for the company, for the role. Because it's not just a skills thing, right? We are looking at a culture fit. We're looking at an attitude. Are you here for the long run? How can you give back to the company, and how can the company help you as well, right? It's a two-way flow. It's always reciprocal. So, Karina, you've hired many people over the years. I'm sure you have a perspective on something that you want to look for in a candidate. And what is your take on how they can show that to you during the interview or the recruitment process?
I have the best live candidate. She just arrived right here. So it's like the best living proof, right? So proactiveness is number one. What you both mentioned is exactly what it is, because as much as ChatGPT can write a great resume, your personal action is what recruiter is waiting for. Because even if you were turned down and you come back and say, why, this is what I can do, and this and that, that proves that, okay, I might actually give this guy a shot, And throughout that process is more important than most of the time, the candidates that comes to my table was already filtered, right? So I have like one person that's filtering that. So technically what's filtered, I don't want to see the resume anymore because that resume was already filtered by this person. What my job is actually to understand that person one-to-one more than reading the resume, because I don't want to judge based on the resume. That's actually our way of recruiting, because I trust that person has already done his job to filter whoever that I'm going to interview. When it comes to my side, it's gonna be is our vision aligned? It's your way of working aligned with our way of working? So are you 9 to 5 or are you flexi, or do you know that our company is like this, like that? Does that work with you? Because every company has different way of working. As a creative agency, we have days that are crazy, we have days that are totally relaxed, right? To us, we have changed a lot. Right now, you can work in Bali for all I care. As long as you did meet the deadlines, that's fine, right? So that kind of like give a balance to us as a company and to everybody in the company as well. Give them happiness. If they're happy, we don't have headaches, so that's great.
I think we always see about like the employee value proposition, right? Of when we're hiring someone, it's something like, say, we can give them benefits, maybe they're looking for different compensation and packages. But what is something that maybe we can also go down the line of, for your companies, out of your experience, what can someone learn from you, working with you? What do you want someone to take away? Because we know that candidates, okay, we're giving them opportunities. When they work with us, we give them big projects. What is the thing that they can get when working with you? What is a soft skill? Is it compassion? Because all these small things can't be taught in the classroom, can't be taught in a resume, can't be put down. You're not going to put compassion as part of your skills. What is something that they can learn from you? Maybe let's go with Lionel first.
I think if anybody has gone on somewhat of an entrepreneurship journey, then you appreciate any of your colleagues who are entrepreneurial. And I don't mean business development in any case. It's opportunities. So it could be things like, hey, I met this person, over the weekend who is very good with design. Maybe, take a look at his or her resume and consider this person, or just make a note that this person is good in this. So I think being proactive to let either your supervisor, your boss, or your colleagues know about some of these people you come across, it's got a very ripple effect. Because, down the line, oh, this person actually did this, and I remember being mentioned like some months back. So maybe I can now call this person back because I need this person. So I think some of these things during my time when I was running my startup really helped, because these are the names that came up when, some of these things. When you do need somebody, you need somebody. When you don't need somebody, you don't need somebody. But when it's time to find somebody, it's often not so easy. So I think some of these things are really helpful, in my role when I was running a company. Manpower is obviously and will always be a crunch when the time comes. And it's really good to build a database of some of these talents that you will be able to remember and maybe consider next time, even if you don't have an immediate opportunity for it now.
Thaddeus, what about you? What is your take? What is something that they can take away at E27?
Yeah, so culture is a very big thing in small companies, and especially if you're a service company, you have to deal with people day in, day out. The experience is whenever we meet someone as a candidate that is very extrovert, they tend to win in interview process. But does that necessarily mean they're the best candidate? Not all the time. But the thing is that if you are more towards an introvert, you're a little bit more reserved, you might have that passion, you might have all the skills and experiences covered, but you just can't portray that, right? So I think the struggle here sometimes is that we've seen some of these candidates that are very good and they write very good resumes and seems like everything checked out. But when you talk to them, they are unable to convey the information out, even though that job doesn't require them to be extremely people-orientated, but you just can't get the sense that are you who you say you are on paper, right? So I here and there, so that's kind of like a disadvantage to many people that are a little bit more introvert. Unfortunately, that's a challenge that you really have to take up. You have to be more prepared. That's why some of this technology, I thought, if you can do it and you show the initiative, or it's pre-recorded and things that, maybe you're more comfortable doing that, but that helps to show who you are as a person, or maybe just providing more references or character on your character, on things that you've done before that is really spot on to this particular job in terms of the character. Because that's always the struggle for all employees is, okay, you check all the skills and experience, right? Okay, but how about you as a person? And we would love to meet all the candidates and spend one day with them, right? I think 1 hour might not be enough, right? If we can spend one day to understand you as a person, that would be great, but that's not possible. So I think there's always a challenge in the HR space. How do we actually know that you fit that culture, you fit that profile, that person that we see you working together like a family, like a family member, joining your siblings in this company and really driving the company forward. Yeah, that's always the question that we have in mind. So, and unfortunately, I don't have anything that I can share that's positive, but I thought if you're a little bit more introvert, sometimes doing more things to help to explain yourself better will really help the employer to understand you better. Yeah.
All right, so maybe let's just have one more question for the panel before we go into a Q&A session. What is one thing, one word of advice that you would like to give our candidates if they want to break into X-Tech, break into another industry that they might not be familiar with? What is something that they can go out of here and do right from the get-go? Let's start with Karina.
One word, you say?
Okay, one line. It doesn't have to be one word.
If it's one word, I would say persistency, positivity, and literally just go out there and get it. Because if you have doubt in what you're doing today, most likely you will have doubt 2 years later and you will regret on year 3. So you're wasting 3 years, right? So you have doubt today, think about what it is, and then find what you actually really like and go for it, right? So even if you fail, that's completely fine. I failed a lot too. So when I failed, I can only think of going back up, and failed again, that's okay. I'm going back up again. So persistency is what keeps me alive.
That's really, really something that I resonate with. If something goes down, there's only one way up, right? There's only one way you can go. If you don't know where to go, just go forward. Keep moving. I mean, this almost sounds like a Nemo ad, but really just keep moving forward. That's the way that tech goes as well. It's always forward. It's always fast-paced. Lionel, do you have any lines of advice for the candidates here?
Stay curious. I find that when you stumble onto something and you just keep persisting to stay curious about it, you actually find yourself driven to understand and try to find out more about it. Case in point, I pivoted my career. I was curious about tech. I was in media, and I spent 19 years in media. So I got curious about tech because I joined a company that was doing tech, and then I got curious, and so I switched over. And I think if you are driven by that, you'll be able to see how you can push that forward. And it doesn't mean I know everything about tech. I'm also learning about cloud now. So it's always a learning process to keep going, but as long as you stay curious, you'll be able to get one step further.
I think that's the beauty about tech, right? Because it's always like blue skies all the time. You don't know what's going to be the next big thing. You don't know what's there. It's a big, bright universe. And that's something that you can always be looking to be curious about. How about you, Thaddeus? What is your final words of advice for our candidates here?
So I've seen many startup entrepreneurs, right, like advising, talking about their journey, and what you realize as a common thing at the start, right, is they're never ready. So I'm not asking everyone to start a company tomorrow, but if you are, the point that if you are here and you're thinking of something, you say, should I join this sector or not? Am I ready or not, right? Just do something about it. Don't just go home and say, okay, I'll shelf this and think about it in 1-2 years. Like what Karina mentioned, right? You'll waste time just like that. So put some steps in place, right? But really start now, be it starting your own company, be it exploring that sector that you really want to go into. You don't have to join the company immediately, but you could start with meeting people, talking to them, studying it, going for a learning journey, develop yourself better in skills, whatever it is. But that inability to start I think is the biggest obstacle to many of us here today. Yeah.
It's really all about taking that first step.
Yeah.
It really is a journey of 1,000 miles. It really just begins with the first step. So I think now we'll open up to the floor if anybody has any questions for our panelists. Does anybody have any questions for our panelists? Oh, we do. We do have a question from our panelists. Could we just pass her the microphone over there?
Hi, hello. Thank you for all the sharings and the tips. I'm Sylvia here. So, I would like to ask about like Fiona and Thaddeus sharing about like taking the first step to join in tech, But then from a candidate that has never had relevant experience, and then we do really like maybe throw our resume in all these like some of the position in tech industry, but then no response at all. And then so what is your advice that do you really not looking into the skill and the experience, but then looking into personality during the interviews, or like skills always is the first criteria that you all are looking at? Because like from the job posting criteria, you always mention that the minimum requirement is maybe like the experience like at least like 1 to 3 years and above, things like that. So what is your advice? Thank you.
I can take that.
Lionel?
I think, okay, so it's really a chicken and egg. So I think you struggle to get a response if the person doesn't see any experience in tech for obvious reasons. And few companies will want to start with you from zero to, for example, do marketing for tech if you haven't had the background. But at the same time, if you know you're going to want to go into this role, there's nothing stopping you from starting to market about tech when you're not employed in that company yet. So what I mean is, I teach design thinking at NUS, and some of the designers that take the course wanted to move and change careers into becoming a designer, but obviously they don't have any background. One of the things that we do during the course is to enable them to take up and do as many design portfolios as possible. So this would be them assuming they are working for Apple and coming up with a design portfolio for Apple and creating an entire portfolio of design that people could see that, oh, if you were employed, this is what you would have done. And so on and so forth. Fourth portfolio, fifth portfolio, sixth portfolio later, you have a body of work to show that I'm really in this space because I have done all these things to show you what I can do, even though I'm not officially employed in it. And it's so much more compelling for many of these companies to say, let me talk to you, this person, and see what they've done. So I think it's really a case of if you put yourself in the shoes of a recruiter and you have no portfolio, it will be hard pressed to say like, but at the same time, there's nothing stopping you from creating these things, and in technology, one of the things I experience is, it doesn't mean that every technology role is a tech role. I struggle to find marketing, biz dev, when I was running my tech company, and in the end I had to do it myself because everybody assumed that, a marketing role is not tech or business role is not tech. But these are very hard to find roles. So that's why I would encourage you. Yeah.
All right. I think.
Sorry if I may add to
go ahead.
that. Right. So I think it might take, if I put myself in your position, I would strategize myself to do several things. Number one is actually to take up online classes, Udemy or whatsoever, that you can start to learn and understand, do you really want to go into this? If yes, keep on doing classes, then you have more certificates. If you don't have the time to go to university because you still need to work 9 to 5 to earn your job, to put food on your table, that doesn't stop you to study in the evening to get your cert and slowly get into the field if you really like it. And step 2 is actually, while you're working full-time, unfortunately, hard work pays. So you can start with a part-time or intern with that company. If you do a good job as an intern and part-time, you can be the full-time there. So that at least the door is already opened. So if you were waiting for miracle to happen, suddenly somebody gonna hire you compared to the other 100 people that's applying with experiences, that's not going to happen. So you have to sacrifice your time, and these are the step 1, 2, 3 that I think you should do.
All right, thank you so much for your question. So I think we've hit our time, and I would just like to finally thank our panelists one more time. Thank you, Karina. Thank you, Lionel. Thank you, Thaddeus, for joining us for today's panel.
Thank you.
And this is the Rise of Experiential Technologies, Ride on the Wave. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Karina, Lionel, Thaddeus, and Mark. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just while we have a little moment, can I just get a show of hands? Who here has the Job Street app downloaded? Okay, show of hands. Okay, we've got one in the front. Anyone else? Okay, a couple in the back. Excellent. Now, if you don't know, okay, JobStreet has recently introduced this Seek Max component on the JobStreet app. Okay, there are a series of video shorts that I promise you are worthwhile checking out. Okay, these are short video content. This is short video content and it is dense. I was checking out the one about identifying skills a little earlier today, and I think these videos are incredibly useful if you're just looking to upskill, just looking to learn a bit. And as I mentioned, they're not too long as well. So go check out the number one, the JobStreet Max, and then also all these short videos there as well.